First of all, I was going to ask you just if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your business.
So my name is Lynsey Roberts, and I am the owner and director of Altruistic Commercial Finance, which has been trading for nearly 3 full years, at the end of January 23. I have been in the banking world for 25 years, so I have a really well-established knowledge and depth, as well as experience and skill set for working with businesses of all shapes and sizes, from new start businesses right up to multi-million pound trading businesses across all sectors. And I have predominantly worked in the banking sector, in the sort of high street banking sector, and in the alternative market over the last 25 years, and got a bit stale after 23 years of it, and decided that I wanted to set up my own business. And I thought, well, what will I do? And I thought, well, stick at what you know best. And there are a lot of brokers out there, and brokers are basically people who organise funding for people. And I thought, well, I can do that because I work with brokers on the lender side. But it's in my opinion, it's a very transactional job. It's very much client comes to you, they need funding, you sort the funding, and you get paid a fee from the lender from it, and you get on with it, and then you move on to the next one. And for me, I think that's all fine and well, but it's more about adding value to your clients and using that knowledge and experience I've got in terms of how I understand their business and where they're at in their business journey and what their issue is and requirement for funding, but also to understand the lender market. I think there's a massive gap, because what was the role of the bank manager, who you had a trusted relationship with, they knew your business, and they knew about how to fund your business, or to help you achieve what your goals were in business, has gone. So the digital world has replaced old school banking. And I think from where I am, my ethos is to work on that relationship with my clients, and kind of be seen as a replacement to the trusted advisor that was the bank manager. So I'm kind of taking a bit of an old school approach, but with a modern twist to it. And I don't advertise myself as a broker as a result of that. I advertise myself as a funding consultant, and exactly what I do. I work with all businesses, and as I said, it can be from new start businesses right through to multi-million pound businesses. And that can be a business that does property development. They have a portfolio of properties, or they do buy to let types of deals. They buy commercial investment, or owner-occupied types of property deals, through to trading businesses that need working capital in the form of unsecured loans, or across lots of sectors and lots of different types of funding, from asset finance to refinancing existing assets in the business, to hire purchase and lease for new assets. And that can be from brewery equipment through to plant and machinery, engineering types of kit, farm equipment, through to like kitting out restaurants and bars. So that can be from like air conditioning, ducting, kitchens, chill rooms. So it's really varied. So I'd say any funding requirement that a business has, I can help out with that. A massive panel of lenders across the whole of the market, up and down the UK, that I have access to, that I can go to for deals. And I think the key thing for me is really understanding the client's needs. Like, say, well, this is what we can do, or you thought about this, or we can go to these lenders, and just making sure that they get the right funding in place to help them achieve what they need it for.
What's the best way to sort of understand the client's needs? How do you sort of get a grasp of that?
My preference is to meet with all my clients face to face, because I think there is so much to be added value if you have a face-to-face relationship with your clients. Sometimes I speak on the phone, or we do Zoom calls or Microsoft Team calls, but it's to get, not just looking at the financials of a business and some paperwork that they can provide, but it's also sitting down, getting to know somebody on a personal basis, a bit more about their personal life, looking at the business, going in and actually seeing what they're doing, whether, if it's a brewery, or if it's on a site, a development site, because they want to build out on a particular site, like say it could be commercial development, offices, or it could be residential, or sitting down and going through the paperwork with them. I'm very hands-on, like, with my client. And I think it's important for them to get to know me and build trust between the two of us. And a traditional broker would not really provide that service. But I definitely think from that, you sort of can set yourself out from the crowd that's out there. It is a competitive market. And like as I said, I set up my business going into the 4th year, and I called it altruistic because that's how I am as a person. That's my sort of value. And that's also how I interact with my clients, that the client is at the heart of everything. Because at the end of the day, I wouldn't be in business if I didn't have clients. And likewise for them, and being altruistic and acting in that sort of selfless way, or with the client as your key priority, is why I call the business that, basically, because it actually means something in terms of the relationship you build with that client and how you value that relationship ongoing. So that was why I called it that. And commercial finance speaks for itself.
Yeah, and I think anything to do with finances, trust is a massive part, isn't it?
Completely. And yeah, people sometimes, like a business owner, doesn't know much about funding. They don't know much about finance. They know what they do best. So if it's making beer, or if it's building houses, or if it's manufacturing a product or providing a service, that's why they're in business, to do that role. But what they need is a team around them, just like I need a team around me that will support that business in its journey. And cash is king for any business, whether they've got cash in the bank and it churns naturally through the flow of the business activity. But 9 out of 10 times, a business will need some sort of funding at some point in its business life cycle for whatever purpose. And yeah, that's the job that I want to play with my clients that come across my desk, that I want to be that trusted advisor and help them, and guide them and give them the advice that they need in terms of the right funding for their business, basically, at that point in time.
Do you think a lot of businesses, when they're starting off, people who are wanting to start businesses, they don't pay enough attention to the finances in the beginning?
I just don't think they've got a knowledge of what's out there, what's available in the market, what lenders are there. There are a host of different lenders that do lots of different things. But if you don't know that, I guess it's an unknown quantity as to where they go to. And it could be a client comes to me and they say, right, oh, I need an unsecured loan. And I'll say, well, why do you need that? What are you trying to do? And understand like the need for that bit of finance. But actually, when we start delving into it, there could be 101 other things. Well, not 101 other things, but there could be like 2 or 3 other opportunities in there that they've not thought about. And we talk about their business journey, and it gets it's educating them more than anything in terms of how I can help them, or what is available to them, because people don't know that.
There must be so many missed opportunities from businesses all over because of what they don't know, especially to do with financials.
100%. Yeah. And there's a market that they just don't get the support there. Accountants support their clients to some extent, but again, they are hugely knowledgeable of what is available. So a lot of my referrals for business come from accountants that I work with, that I've had a long-term relationship with. So they trust me with their clients. I've been able to demonstrate to them over a number of years that I can deliver. I've built my reputation on that from a trusted network of people who refer business to me, and that's predominantly how I get my business. But it's also educating these people. So whilst there's the client side, there's also the network and the contact side that I rely on for business to come to me, because I don't do any marketing at all. Just from word of mouth. I've been fortunate enough not to do any marketing in the 3 years I've been going. And actually, I am really probably grateful for that. But when I first set up the business, it was actually the week before COVID, before the first lockdown. I was actually on garden leave for 6 months with my previous employer. Obviously, can't backtrack on that, and then started the business. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? It's the week before we're going into a lockdown in a week's time, and everything shut up. And I was like, okay, this is awkward. Got my head around the homeschooling thing. It did go really quiet for a period of time, maybe for about 8 weeks. And then the network, I think people just needed time to adjust and pause and think, where do we go from here? What are we really in amongst? There was a lot of government funding come out that supported businesses for a period of time. But obviously COVID like took its toll and went on for quite a long period of time. And as we got into the end of May in 2020, I think a lot of my contacts got in touch and the referrals started to come through. And actually, if I'm being honest with you, I have never looked back. And I've been so busy, I've done no marketing. I do my business development around the contacts that I have, and that long established relationships with people I've known for years. And then in the course of that, I've met a lot of new people. And as a result of that, I've got a huge client bank, and I've had a lot of repeat clients and referrals from my client base as well. I have to say, I've not had any distressed businesses come across the desk. It's all been really positive. And I think that's a good message to put out to SMEs or to businesses, that despite what we hear on the media, there's a lot of good things out there. And there is a lot of support and funding available to businesses, and that business is ongoing despite the economic conditions that we're all sort of facing, and the extra costs and burdens that puts under us as individuals. It also hugely impacts businesses. And at this point in time, that's where they need the support, because working capital is, I suppose, challenged in the current climate. So that is me in a nutshell. But yeah, maybe need to get a wee bit more savvy at the marketing. And I think, as I'm talking about having a good team around you, like, I believe in that. I've got a really good accountancy firm that support me and back me up, and I just rely on them to do my sort of accounts, and that takes that pressure off me. But I think one of my sort of ideas on my agenda for next year is to bring in some marketing support, keep the churn going to the client base from, you know, various different campaigns, or maybe getting onto social media a bit more and exposing myself and my business and its growth journey, because, you know, I've probably doubled my business this year.
What do you think the main reasoning for that is? Just word of mouth?
Word of mouth, and being good at what I do, and having a good reputation, and working with the right people. Sheer hard work, a lot of hard work. You know, it's not just about doing the funding, it's all the admin. You know, I am just on my own doing it. So that's a challenge in itself. But, you know, I'm a hard worker. I'm dedicated and quite resilient. So I think if you've got those qualities, and I think that stands you in good stead for being a business owner.
When you started off your business, what were the main challenges though? What did you struggle with?
Well, I think COVID was when I first started. The key thing for me was COVID, because obviously it didn't let me go out and see people, and it was very difficult. You know, we had to resort to the digital world, Zooms and Microsoft Teams, to do deals, and getting out to see clients' businesses. It was very difficult because we weren't allowed to do that. And in COVID, I picked up my first client, who is still my client to this day. And obviously, for confidentiality reasons, I can't mention any names. But it was a very small brewery. Yeah, it was just ticking along, making beer from home. And this business is now a multi-million-pound turnover business. And I've done all their funding for them over the last 2 years. It's a great success story, but that's one of many really good stories I could tell. But for reasons of confidentiality, I can't. And I think that was the biggest hurdle initially. And I think the other challenge I have is just what I've just said to you. It's been a one-man band, and making sure I have the right team around me to support my business, which is what I'm saying is how I can empathise with my clients, is making sure that they've got the right team, or they should be making sure that they've got the right team, so that they can focus on their core business activity and be supported by the various functions and parties that need to support their business on that journey. I'm exactly the same. So having a good accountant is really, really essential. It means that my tax returns are done, my accounts are done on time, I've got good advice and support. Marketing's next on the list, and maybe pulling my mum in to help me now and again with the admin. Other than that, I can't say. I think the biggest other thing that I find is time. So, you know, it's very difficult and I'm sure all business owners will say this, it's very difficult to find time for you, or to take time away from the business when it's your own business and it's yourself operating that business. That means when you're going on holiday, you have to be available, because you're only ever as good as your last deal. You can never take anything for granted. So for me, having that, you know, being altruistic in the way that I work as a person, and the values that I have in terms of how I operate my business and interact with my clients, I've got to be available on the phone if I go away on holiday, or take my laptop with me. If there's a time when you're sitting on holiday in the sun and you need to write up a quick proposal or do a call, then you've got to be there for your clients, and that is a great place to be. But equally, it takes, you know, it has its challenges on family time.
You mentioned you've dealt with smaller one person businesses up to multi-million-pound companies. Is it the same process, or is it completely different?
They all get the same level of service. Yep. Different businesses have different needs and desires, and I think that depending on what level of business you're dealing with and what funding they need will reflect on the work that I put into the deal effectively, and the work that it needs to be done to get them funding in place. It could be straightforward, a small loan application through to, a multi-million-pound property development or development exit type of facility. And yeah, there's more work goes into that. Sometimes the younger businesses, it's more of a challenge to get funding because of lack of trading. They've been affected by COVID or affected by all the increased costs that a business, as I said, like individuals face or households face. The businesses are facing these costs as well with regards to energy rates. Everything's going up. Cost of materials going up. Supply chain issues, and that's when you're running a business and you rely on these things to make the activity of your business happen. That's a huge challenge in itself. But yeah, and businesses don't want to stay where they are. They want to grow. So yeah. That's the challenges I've faced basically.
For these smaller businesses, it's obviously harder to get some funding.
There's not a lot of support for very young, early stage businesses.
So what's some ways around that?
Well, I work with a government agency. They can help. They've got some access to startup loans. I think because the government have put a lot of money into all the sort of COVID support, that's reduced the amount of startup funding that's available. But like I had one of my clients who came to me and he was a roofer. And this is another nice success story. And he had a wee bit of cash to put in his business, but he needed some vans to get him going. So we were able to get him some asset finance to purchase the vans and then working capital. So because he does like business to business sales, I was able to use his debtor book to leverage a working capital facility, which is secured by the debtors, which takes him off the hook as an individual. And he still has that facility and he's been going for 2 years and the business has gone from strength to strength. So it can be simple and small like that. But I guess that's the difference for me, is knowing that those products are out there and knowing the right questions to ask my client in terms of their business to try and match what might be there to how their business or the assets in the business that might leverage funding to them, even at an early stage. When it's a cash-driven business like a coffee shop or like a restaurant, that's harder.
When you were starting up your business, was there anybody you went to for advice?
No, I think after doing it for 20 odd years that you kind of know. I'm not a silly person. I've worked with these businesses for years, so I've seen it all myself. I just had a good accountant, if I'm being honest with you, and I still have that same accountant to this day who has been hugely supportive of my business, and I am supportive of their business as well. Yeah, I think that was the guidance I needed. I think for me, it was just getting a foot on the ground and getting out there and doing the job and learn. I've had to refresh my education on some products that I now sell, because things change in the market, especially from where I came out of and what I was doing at my previous employer, to being all, funding all types of providing funding of all types to businesses. So it was a wee bit rusty on maybe some of the asset finance stuff and some of the property development stuff as I went along. But having a good team of lenders in there is important as well, because if you have good relationships with these people, they'll guide you through putting a deal together or what their criteria is, or you talk openly about the deal. And as I said, I work on a relationship basis with my clients, but I also do that with all the lending panel that I work with as well, because it's good to have that relationship with them. I think it's hugely important, and it builds your professionalism and also your credibility. Other than that, no, there was nobody else that really supported me. I just got on with it. As I said, I don't know much about marketing, but I definitely have my own ideas about that. And that's something I think I'll see happen in 2023. And yeah, I'll make sure I've got the right people to support me that know about marketing.
You mentioned the importance of having a good accountant. Do you think that's something people overlook with startups?
Mm-hmm. I think people don't want to pay the fees and stuff, but actually what you pay for is what you get. And for me, it's really important with HMRC to make sure that my accounts are done on time and they're submitted and there's no errors in it and my tax is right, because that is a burden in itself. Because if you start, making mistakes on that, it can be costly. It can also affect your not just your credibility, but your role as a director in a business if you don't do things correctly and by the book. For me, my finance function is relatively straightforward, but for businesses where it's a bit more complex in terms of depending on what they do, I think like having a good accountant is actually a huge value to any business. They're the people that give you guidance on your and support on, how much you should be paying yourself, how you can pay yourself, salary, dividends, directors' loans, using assets in the business, and I think unless you really know that inside out, you should always have a good accountant, definitely.
There's obviously hundreds of thousands of accountants out there. How would you advise people to go around choosing the right person?
Well, go out and see who's out there, meet the people face to face, do your research on the accountancy, the company background, the owners of the business. Ask, what support you're going to be given. Don't ever just get one quote, get a few quotes. I suppose like how I work with my clients is get a feel for the person. People buy people. I don't think that people, like, to some extent in the consumer world, people will buy a brand because, like, if I like whistles, for example, or Reese as a shop, I'll buy that because I like the clothes and I know the brand. But I think in the world that I'm in, and I think this applies to like some lawyers and accountants, professional services, people buy people. They'll buy your brand secondly. If you know that you're trusted and that you're professional and credible and that you can do a job for them and you can have a relationship with them, they will come back to you time and time again. It's not about the brand you buy. Certainly in the finance world, I would absolutely, and I've been in it long enough to know that I would say that was the case.
Do you see a lot of people, a lot of business owners overcomplicate things when all it really comes down to is people selling yourself to another person?
I think that the people part is a massive part of any business, regardless of what you do. I don't know if people actually look at it like that, but certainly that's my experience, and I would 100% agree with that. But like if you're offering services or manufacturing something, you're going to have like relationships with the people that bring that business together, like your suppliers, your customers, your staff. It's all about, actually, business is all about having good relationships or having relationships with across a wide spectrum of people that help make that your business happen, basically.
So from what you've learned through running your business now, what's one thing you wish you knew when you started that you now know?
I don't know. Would I do anything differently? No, I would not do. Like, I've been totally grateful for everybody that supported me on my journey, from the very start to now. Would I do anything differently? Probably not. It's been for me, it's been a huge, it's a challenge, and I've loved every minute of it, and I still do, and I get a huge amount out of the job I do. Yeah, there's nothing I would change. It's been a learning curve, and I think if you're in business, it's a constant learning curve. I constantly learn every day, and I think where I came from to running my own business, I've been doing it for so long. I was just bored, but it's actually probably reignited me a little bit in terms of like I have realized how good I am at what I do, and that I am hugely respected in the wider community across my client base and professional contacts that I work with. And I think for me is having belief in yourself, because for me, I'm a single mum, and it was a huge thing to take on board and do when you're responsible for one little individual in that household. I think that for me was the biggest worry. And having, worked in the banking sector and being comfortable with an employer paying you and having holidays and having a regular salary coming in every month, to then going to be on your own and self-employed, and it can be lumpy, so your income can be up and down every month. It's not constant like getting your monthly wage from an employer. Having a steady paycheck from your employer is great and it's comfortable, but when you go into the world of owning a business, it doesn't quite work like that. And funding can take a long time to get put in place. There's some quick win stuff, there's some longer term types of deals that you do, and it can take months. You could be 3-4 months, and I think COVID has slowed everything up as well, in terms of having to deal with other parties that come into the transaction. So I think for me, I wouldn't change anything. And I think I've learned a huge amount, and I still learn, which has been great. But I think belief in myself and the courage to do it has been the biggest thing for me. And just always making sure that I keep believing in myself and what I want to achieve for my business, basically, is important. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you can't see the wood from the trees, because you get caught up in the midst of it all. But I think reflecting now, like coming to Christmas time and hopefully having a wee bit of time off, I've realised how well I've actually done. in a very difficult time and on my own.
How do you sort of overcome that self-doubt at times when it starts to creep in?
You just have to keep going. Resilient. I think being resilient and just having that drive and being ambitious and not giving up and being a strong character is really important in any, whatever business you're running. If you don't have that ethos, there's no point in doing it. But we all have rubbish days, and we all have challenges, and things go wrong, and deals get declined, and clients' businesses are challenging, and explaining that and trying to be transparent with the clients and explaining why they're not suitable or why they're declined. It's sometimes just rubbish. Really, that's the rubbish part of the job. But it's managing expectations and my own expectations, I suppose. And I think if you're strong and resilient and focused, you just have to wipe the slate clean sometimes, dust yourself down and get back on it, because at the end of the day, you're the person solely responsible for making money. And I've got my biggest motivation is my wee girl, if I'm being honest with you, and building hopefully a decent life for her. And she is the purpose to get out of bed every day when you feel, well, this is a bit of a challenge, or it's not been a great day or whatever. But shit happens, I suppose, in life, and we all have our challenges, don't we? You can give in to them, or you can just get up and get on with it. What financial advice would I give to a business owner? Cash is king. Make sure you've got cash to operate your business. If you've got cash in the bank, great. If you don't, make sure you've got working capital in whatever format that comes, and assuming that the business needs working capital. And if you're dealing with like business to business transactions, there's various types of working capital facilities that are out there. Don't grow too quickly and overburden yourself with taking on too much business.
Do you think that's common for businesses to sort of try?
I think it's usually common, and a lot of times I see clients and they've gone, they found that they've got this, it's all about the turnover. I'm going to do X amount of turnover, but actually that means nothing if you're not making any money. At the end of the day, you're in business to make money. It's not the turnover that pays you. It's actually, if your business is profitable, that is a healthy business. So you could do less turnover, make better margins on the work that you're doing, or the goods you're selling or services you're providing, and the business is profitable. You could be doing loads of turnover with really fine margins and not making any money, or just breaking even. So I think business owners get caught up in turnover, where actually it's about making good money. At the end of the day, that is what making a profit is about. Or making a profit is about being in business and having a successful business. That shows the strength of your business. It's about the turnover, and having good money management, I think, is really important, and having the right financial support and guidance and advice from an accountant is really important. And make sure that you make your VAT and PAYE payments on time, and that you can service the debt that you take on. You don't take on anything that you don't believe you can see through, because that can land you in a lot of trouble.
Have you saw that firsthand?
100%, I've seen it firsthand. Yeah, 100%. And I've seen some quite scary stories in the time that I've been working in the banking world as well. Yeah, make sure you can go to bed and sleep at night, I think, is definitely the key thing for me and for any business owner, that you have some sort of peace of mind despite the sort of day-to-day challenges of running a business, that the cash is okay in the business, and cash is king for any business, regardless of what you do.
What would you say is most important to you in your business, in terms of, you talked about it's really important to be able to get a good sleep at night?
Yeah, well, having a good sleep at night is important, and not having to worry about the finances of the business, and being able to make sure that you can cover your own outgoings and your salary. I think for me, having good people around me in the journey is important, and that comes from the clients, the professional network of contacts that you build, the lenders, your accountant, the right team around you, and working hard with everybody that makes up that jigsaw puzzle. think that's important to me, because without all these people, the jigsaw puzzle like isn't completed. So it's a good team effort all round with all the parties involved. And I think for me, it it's important for me personally that I do well and succeed. I'm quite an ambitious person. I know my stuff, and it's important for me not just to sort of stand still, but I have aspirations to grow the business as well.
Where do you see the business growing to? Where would you ideally like to see it?
Well, I suppose there's two trains of thoughts on this. I could try to grow a big business, a reasonably sized business, but then that comes with its own challenges, and you start taking on staff, you've got HR to deal with, as well as being responsible for other people's salaries and their sort of standard of living, and allowing them to be paid and meet their personal commitments. And that is not just me having that for myself, but that's a big challenge and responsibility for anybody. So there's the chat of taking it to a certain level where you have a small team working for you. Is that what I want to do? Probably not. I think I'm not saying I'm not going to grow the business, but I think there's a limit of where I'll take it to. And I think a work-life balance is quite important. So whilst I said earlier on that I don't think when you're a business owner, it's hard to just get complete time away from your business, because it's always there and you're responsible for that. I think for me is especially being a working mum and a single mum at that, is being able to manage my time, that I can do the things I need to do as a mum and still run my business. So being flexible, I think, in terms of the hours that I work and what I put into it and what I get out of it is important to me. And I think if I was to grow it to a certain level, there's not a lot more challenges that would come into force on that. Where I am now, whilst I work really hard and I work quite long hours, and it does have its challenges, I could see myself maybe taking on a couple of people at the very most, and just getting to a level where I'm comfortable with that and having a good work-life balance. Because I'll be 50 in 4.
Can it be hard? Can it be hard at times?
Yeah, and I'll be 50 in 4 years' time, and I think you get to a point where there's more to life than working yourself into the ground. I want to reap the rewards of running a business, but equally have a work-life balance. I think that's important to me, definitely, and take the business too. So I don't know where it'll go is the answer. I think just work hard and see where we get to. And I've done well this year, so hopefully that will continue into next year, and I'll further build on that growth next year and into the year after, and then we'll see where we go.
When you first started your business, I've spoken to a few people about this that I've already had on, and they've talked about a business plan when they started off their business. Did you have a business plan, or did you sort of just go a little bit tongue in cheek?
No, a wee bit tongue in cheek, and I have my own plan. So, like for me, it was just getting out there, speaking to the lenders. So the plan was quite basic. I suppose for next year, the business is growing. I think there's a wee bit of planning going on now and into the start of January in terms of the strategy of where I am, and as I said, trying to grow the business a bit more next year. I'm probably more focused on having a plan now than I was at the start of it. So yeah, I think it depends on the business, and it depends on your background and what you're going to do. But yeah, I think you definitely have to have a business plan. When I worked in the bank, and as I said to you, I've always worked on the sort of the sales business development front. Every year I wrote a business plan in terms of my targets, how I was going to achieve them, and where I was going to get deals from, making new contacts, new introducer, professional network contacts. And it was kind of like a working document, in the sense that plan, because you just get caught up in doing the deals. And yes, I still have a plan. I still work on that basis, but as my business has done well this year, and hopefully will continue to go next year, I have a bit more of a strategy and a strategic plan than more of a general plan, if that makes sense.
Is there any advice you'd give to sort of the business owners or existing business owners?
Networking is important for me, because it's a key part of my job. I hate going to working events, but when you start out in business, and as I did when I started out in the bank, it's something you just have to do to build your contact base. I'm obviously quite fortunate. I've got a really good contact base and one I really value. But networking, I think, is, well, you know, is it networking? Is it having relationships with key people that make your business happen? I think there's two sides to that, depending on what you do. But networking is important with the people that you need to have the relationships with, and I mean that in a business sense as well. So it's good to like have the professional networking side of it, but I also think, you know, I suppose it's good to know people more on a personal level as well. And some of my contacts are really good friends of mine, and they have been for many years now.
That can only help, can't it?
Yeah, but that takes a while to build that up, that type of relationship. But I think regardless of what you do in business, I think having a network of people around you that you work with to make your business happen is really important, and it's a huge value to your business. Never to be underestimated, I suppose.
Is there anything you feared when you started up your business?
Failure. Nobody wants to fail. Everybody wants to, well, I suppose if you're going into business, you want to be successful and make a success of it. And yeah, I think everybody has that fear of not making it, and many people don't make it, but you learn lessons from that. And if you fail, you just get up and get on with it. And yeah, that was definitely a concern, and it not like taken off as I anticipated, and then, you know, being left with in a bit of a personal financial circumstance that would have challenged me to some extent. But you know, I had a plan B that if it did fail, or if it wasn't what I wanted to do or didn't enjoy it, as to what I would go back and do. So yeah, I think failure is and just making sure that you can make money out of it was my big issues, basically, personally.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I was going to ask if in the beginning everything went to plan, or was there a lot that went?
No, because COVID got in the way. So it made doing business very difficult, because you couldn't see people and get out and develop your relationships. And I was out of the game for 6 months before that because I was on garden leave. Then people really wanted to take the government money, and the government money is cheaper money, and you know, there was no need for somebody like me in the marketplace for a short period of time. And that was something nobody could have any control over. But I suppose, you know, it didn't last for long. You work your way through it, and it went, you know, for me, fortunately, it's been okay. I've not had nothing bad happened out the back end of it.
Yeah, that seems a common factor from everyone I've spoken to so far, is learning from your mistakes.
Yeah, I think that applies in business and in your personal life. You know, nobody goes through life and doesn't make a mistake in their life. Like, absolutely, you know, it's what you take from that experience, and what you learn from it, and how you grow away from that, and develop as an individual, I think is key.
I've spoken to people from loads of different industries, and this is sort of the first from the financial aspect of things, and well, it's probably the most important, isn't it? Well, it's one of the most important parts. Yeah.
It's key, isn't it? And as I would say, like, if there's anybody that needs to speak about how they fund their business, you know, from start-up to existing businesses, whether they use existing brokers or whatever, you know, I'm happy to help anybody out.
I was going to ask, what's like the process? So someone would come to you.
Somebody will come to me. So just really through my website. So as I said, Altruistic Commercial Finance. You can get my mobile number from there, my email address, and you can book a chat with me. There's a facility to book a chat with me on the website as well. Just book in. There's set times in my diary set aside for that every week, and I'll pick up with anybody that wants to speak to me, and I'll be delighted to help anybody out, regardless of where they are in their business journey. So if they're starting out, or if they're you know, looking to refinance assets, or they've got new contracts or projects on the go, it doesn't really matter to me. You know, that is my job, to cover all aspects of funding.
Good stuff. It's been good chatting to you.
Good. It's been lovely. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate that.